And away we go. It is the BCJ Podcast, brought to you by the Holy Grail right here on BearcatJournal.com. I wasn't sure if we were going to do it, but we're going to do it. Holy Grail, Saturday, 4:30, as the Bearcats take on the Cougars from Houston. I'm not going to lie. I was influenced by a win last night. I think it's worth one final hoorah watch party at the Holy Grail. So come visit us. We will have bucket specials. They will have Cincy Light on tap. Great food. You're right around dinner time. So make plans. Saturday, Holy Grail, and we will get you taken care of. We will have a wonderful time as we watch the Bearcats try to pull the miracle. Because, boy, Houston's just a machine. It's so stupid watching them. All right, let's get to it. We have something else to talk about today, Dave.
Yes.
See this right here? This thing right here. That everybody, when we first debuted it, everybody was talking about.
For those not
Bar
watching, he's talking about a Cincy Light
the Cincy Light bar sign that is on display in the Cincy Light studios. Dave, we're giving away not one, we're giving away two.
Oh my goodness.
Cincy Light bar signs. Neon. If you need to see it, there's a picture on my Twitter feed. But here's what you need to do. Between now, we are announcing the winners next Wednesday, or next probably Thursday night, since the final home game of the season is next Wednesday night against Kansas State. That unless Dave wants to wait until 10:30 to do the show.
No, Dave doesn't.
So next week will be a Thursday show, and we will announce two winners of the Cincy Light bar sign. Here's what you need to do. Go to the Cincy Light Instagram page, at Cincy Light. There's a post that's tagged to the top of the page. All you have to do, go to that post, tag a friend in the comments. Just like last week, we had a great response for last week when we did the bar, the dive bar giveaway. You can still get these. CincyLight.com. You can go to the shop. You can still buy those. But we had a great response then. So big time. Cincy Light bar sign. This thing is expensive. I've seen it's expensive. You're going to want to win this if you got a chance. So go to Instagram at Cincy Light, tag a friend in the picture or in the post that is pinned to the top of the page, and you get registered, and you can win one of two that we are going to give away. Also, they are available for pre-order on the merch store, shop.rheingeist.com. If you want to go directly to it, shop.rheingeist.com/products/Cincy-Light-Ohio-LED. But just go to Cincy Light, go to shop.rheingeist.com, and you can find it from there. Get your pre-order in. But we are giving two, not one, but two away next Thursday on this show. So the partnership with Cincy Light started back in November. I told you guys we were going to ramp things up as we got into the spring, and we are ramping things up. Giveaway last week, giveaway this week. That is what Cincy Light is bringing exclusively to the members and viewers of Bearcat Journal. Shop.rheingeist.com will get you the pre-order, or at Cincy Light on Instagram. Tag a friend, and you are registered to win the Cincy Light bar sign, neon bar sign. All right. Here we go, Dave. Bearcats get a win last night, 69-67 over Baylor. They moved to 7-10 in Big 12 play. They are scratching and clawing all the way to the finish line, trying to make up for what was a disappointing January with a much more rewarding February. You heard, if you have, I assume most of you have watched 2-point blowout round. That's absolutely right.
What's up, Natty
blowout.
Ron?
What's up, Natty Ron? I'll be on the radio tomorrow too, Natty Ron. Tomorrow and Friday, I'm in for Mo, so make sure you're there as well. Great first half. Excellent final 10 minutes to the first half. And then, as you would expect, Baylor's got a lot of weapons offensively, specifically a top 10 probably pick in the NBA draft in VJ Edgecombe, who sometimes makes shots that you just shake your head and there ain't a whole lot you can do. One of the better college forwards, I think, in the country, in Norchad Omier. I do have something I want to get to on the NIL topic from a quote I got from Scott Drew last night in the post-game press conference. But they have two great offensive players. They rode those guys as much as they could. I thought Cincinnati did a pretty good job defending both of them. They each had a little, they got going a little bit, but it wasn't like a whole game thing where you've seen from them. Edgecombe's had games of 34, 35 points, and Omier's been in the 20s multiple times. They did a decent job on it. It wasn't great. There were lapses. And then they did the thing that we've been talking about them missing, Dave. And that is they made some absolute toughness plays at the end of the game. And the toughest play of the season for me is Day Thomas digging out that ball and getting a jump ball when Omier was going to score. Like, that is where he scores from. He was going to score and tie that game up. And Day Thomas makes the toughness play of the season to date, gets the jump ball, and Cincinnati ultimately gets the 69-67 win. You've heard my thoughts about it last night on the aftermath. So, Dave, I will turn it over to you. Yeah, what did you think about last night?
Well, for me, we're just kind of to the point where, like, the micro of it doesn't really matter. Like, they need to win games. So how they do it, don't really care, if we're being honest. Like, I thought Josh Reed again solidified himself as one of the 5 best players in the world playing basketball right now.
He might, you're joking about that, but he might be one of the 5 most efficient basketball players in the world over the last 3 weeks. He just doesn't miss a shot.
No, I tweeted that as a joke. I tweeted how after being 2 for 24 at one point, Jizzle James is now 20 for 24 from 3 in their last 5 games. I'm not sure how you go from one polar opposite to the other like that. And I don't want to be out over my skis with it, but the play that Day made, most people recognized it right away. I would say it's the type of play that me personally, have frankly been complaining about this team not making all year.
For sure.
All year.
For sure.
And it's cliche, and everybody can say, like, oh, that's Spartan basketball, or that's this team basketball. Like, that's, we say that's Bearcat basketball. Like, that's what I feel like has been missing. Yeah. And the same goes for Aziz on the missed free throw. Now, I would love to know if he realized in the moment that they were not in the bonus, because if he didn't, and that would have been like a bonus play, and he does that, and they call the foul, then we're all going crazy.
Yeah.
But if he did know that they only had 5 fouls, then I think it's a genius play, because what's the worst that happens? They call the foul, there's probably 0.8 of a second left, and they have to inbound at the length of the floor for a tying or winning basket, where he is aggressive and tips it out, and the game ends there. But those are 2 plays that I feel like have been totally missing from this team, and not necessarily in the very, very end of the game, but in moments when either you have the opportunity to extend a lead, by making that type of a play, or you have the opportunity to stop a run by the opponent by making that type of a play. Those things have just been pretty much non-existent, in my opinion, for the vast majority of the season.
Dave, did it seem like Baylor thought there were 2 free throws?
Which, if they did, like, that's how, like, pay way more attention to the situation. Like, it wasn't a shooting foul.
No, did it look like that kind of to you? They just kind of like they were flat-footed.
It certainly didn't seem like they were, because he made the move on his side, but like nobody on the other side of the lane seemed to even really move on the miss either.
Right. That's why it just looked weird.
Certainly
Visually, it looked weird.
Right. Because the ball had to get, like, he was not, if I'm remembering correctly, he was not like next to whoever was the lowest guy on the block. He was like the next spot up because he hit it with his right hand. So if he was the next spot up, there's no way he could have done that. If he was one block closer to the rim, the ball kicked out too far for him to do that with his right hand. So yeah, it certainly was an odd reaction to the free throw. Without asking, it's tough to tell, but yeah, you pretty much control most of the game, and then you're in this situation at the end where you're kind of trading baskets, and I'm not going to say like trying to hang on because they were always in the lead, but it got dicey again at the end, and the smallest guy on the floor gets down on the floor and ties up a guy that had been which there's little things here and there that frustrated me about the game of, in the first half they go 7 minutes without scoring and we're up 5, or without making a field goal. I think they made made a couple free throws in there, but like,
to be fair, UC was down 5 when it started, so they had made up a 10-point gap. Like, you want to be greedy, and they did end up pushing it in that final 3 minutes out to 13.
After that, for sure. Yeah. But then he gets his 4th foul, and we weren't able to get him out of the game. But really, at this point, it doesn't really matter. Like, they have to win games. They probably need other teams to lose games, and because I know we joke about Houston and everything, but like, that's your shot. Because you look at, I know you and Brett and Aaron pay attention to like the rest. I follow pretty much 4 teams. Like, I'm not up on who's on the bubble, who's playing tonight, that if they lost or won, it would help the Bearcats' efforts. But like, just using it as an example, because I did want to just see like, okay, who are some bubble teams and what do their resumes look like? I looked at Georgia just as an example because I think they're in a similar situation to UC. They're not in the, I don't even think they're in the quote, last 4 in, first 4 out type of a situation. They're beyond that. But you look at their schedule, they've got 4 top 25 wins. Beat Florida last night, have a win over St. John's, beat Kentucky, beat Oklahoma when they were ranked. I don't think they're as good as they're clearly not as good as they were when they beat them, but like, don't have a galling bad loss. I think their probably worst loss is probably South Carolina. So it's still not that bad. So I kind of look at it and I'm like, when it comes down to it, they have to get somebody that gets into the competition of those other type of wins that other teams may have, to kind of get into that realm of, okay, this is like a tournament team. And so Saturdays, outside of the conference tournament, which you don't know who you're going to play, it's a ridiculously hard task. But they've played, which is another point of, they've played some pretty good basketball for the past month plus. And then you just look at, from basically the beginning of February on, you have a loss to Iowa State and then just 2 weights of losses to West Virginia hanging around your neck.
I mean, right now West Virginia is a tournament team, Dave. Like
that's my
let's
point.
not act like they're.
That's my
I know,
point,
but
Chad.
they're not. They should have won at West Virginia. Absolutely, they played like dogs. I'm not going to say they should have beat West Virginia at home because they played probably their worst that they played.
That's my point. Who's the team they've beaten this year that is definitely in the tournament?
BYU and Baylor is in the tournament.
Definitely.
They're not Baylor
definitely.
can play their way out of the tournament. They are in the tournament right now.
Right now, there's 3 games left in the regular season. Who is definitely in the tournament that they've beaten?
BYU for sure.
Okay. That's if you think West Virginia is in or on the bubble or whatever, you would have had a month and a half or almost a month basically of your only loss is a stinker at home, whatever. You can't say they could have, should have won that game. That was just bad.
No, they played like trash.
But then Iowa State, and
the
that's
worst
it.
game of the year.
At Iowa State.
Yeah, that's a product of the schedule. It's a product of having a bad month. But
that wasn't even the bad month. That was the good month.
But they are in this position because they had a bad month. Because they didn't get anything accomplished in January.
Right.
They beat Colorado and Arizona State in January, and that was it. They didn't do anything for a month. And that is why they're in the position that they're in. They've done everything they can over the past 3.5 weeks. They're 5-2 in the last 7 games.
Yeah.
They lost to Iowa State and West Virginia, both on the road. So the resume is not, but you know what the resume looks like, Dave? It looks like a bubble team.
But it doesn't even stack up against other bubble teams. That's
yes.
my concern.
How does everybody have them first 4 out or right there on the cut line? If they don't look like a bubble team, explain that to me.
I don't.
They have the second most They have the second most Q2 wins in the country.
Yeah, and they have the least Q1 wins.
No, if you look, almost all of those teams have 0 or 1 quad 1 wins. That's why they're all on the bubble together.
Okay. Then we're looking at 2 different things because the CBS bracketology today, Gonzaga has 5, somebody else had 4, a whole bunch of teams had 3, other teams had 4.
All considered in.
No, they're not. They were out of Jerry Palm's bracket. All of them.
Well, that's your first mistake. You're looking at Jerry Palm's bracket.
Well, who am I supposed to look at then, Mr. I know everything there is about bracketology.
I mean, it's my job to pay attention to it all. Jerry Palm is traditionally one of the worst bracket guys on the planet.
And yet CBS just keeps paying him.
I mean, great job if you got grandfathered into it. Lenardi's the same way. He's terrible at it.
Who am I supposed to pay attention to?
Good start, bracket guy Dave. That's a good start.
Where is he from?
He's for the past 7 years been one of the top 3 guys every year. At bracket guy Dave. So he's got an extended history of being in the top.
Does he have a website?
5. He's on Twitter.
Well, I mean,
I don't know if he has a website or not. I just follow him on Twitter.
Find his stuff outside of Twitter.
I don't know. I follow him on Twitter. Dave Omen, O-M-M-E-N, bracket guy Dave. Bracketville.wordpress.com is where you can find him.
Okay, well, bracket guy Dave hasn't posted on Twitter since 2022.
At bracket guy Dave posted on Twitter 1 hour ago.
At it.
1 hour ago.
Is the first thing that comes up on Twitter when I Google it. It says 2022.
At bracket BRACKET GUYDAVE. Yeah, I'm on his page right now.
So
he posted an hour ago. He has posted he posts 10 times a day.
Okay. I just Googled it and nothing came up. So
okay. You asked me who to look at. That's one of the main guys.
I'm gonna look at it right now while we're live here.
I think he's got UC first 4 out.
You can't even look at it. It's behind a subscriber wall.
Of course it is. He wants to make money.
Well, either way.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got UC either first 4 out or next 4 out. They're squarely on the bubble.
Okay, well, I don't think whether bracket guy Dave or Jerry Palm has them doesn't change who has more Q1 wins, right? I mean,
but that's not the only. If that was the only metric, we just measure Q1 wins. And
I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying like they don't stack up.
Then how does everybody have them right there on the cut line?
Okay, I don't know, man. Everybody can have them on the cut line. It doesn't mean
if you have the stance, then how does everybody have them right there on first 4 out next? Like they're right there.
Right. Okay. So what can they do the rest of the way to go from next 4 out to in the field?
Well, keep winning because that's the most important part. But if they beat Houston, I think they're off the bubble.
Right. If they beat a team that hasn't lost at home in like 3 years.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're not going to.
I would agree. Let's just pretend like I don't think we're going to like take any slings and arrows, but let's just say that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Then what do they have to do from that point on to make the tournament?
I would say probably get past Wednesday. If they beat, you're going to have to win the other 2. You're going to have to.
You're not getting, but you're not really getting. That's not really helping you. Other than
but you have to do it.
Right.
You have to do it.
It's not.
And then
the only thing it does is it's not another loss.
Right. The thing that I think is difficult is that first game is not going to help you at all in the Big 12 tournament because you're going to play on Tuesday.
If you're an 11 seed, you're playing like the 14 seed or something.
So you would have to win Wednesday for sure, and it just depends on who you play on Wednesday because that's going to be 5 through 8, and that's going to be a quad 1 game. Like it's going to be a quad 1 if you get there. Whoever those are, it's like at the top 50 neutral is quad 1. So all of those teams are in the quad 1 range. Depending on who it is, you got to win there. And then I think you have to play tight with whoever on Thursday. Because I think the problem, I think it gets misconstrued, this notion that, the committee doesn't pay attention to conference tournaments. I think if you pay attention to how this is done, they meet on Tuesday night. They start working on Wednesday. By the end of Wednesday or early Tuesday, if you talk to media people that have done the bracket exercise where they bring the media people in and they simulate it. And then if you listen to Andy Katz will sometimes post on, the committee has gotten to this point or they've scrubbed this many lines of generally by Thursday, the at-larges have been picked. Now they'll have some contingencies, but I don't really believe. I think once those things are picked, it's a challenge. Now, again, the problem, Dave, is they didn't do enough in January to give themselves any breathing room. So you can't really answer this question without knowing the moving parts that happen around it. Let's say the first team out is sitting there with the last team in, and the last team in loses their first round conference tournament game against a bad team. That can change things.
Sure, I think I think they don't care about conference tournaments gets to who wins the championship game doesn't really, they don't move team seed lines, when you get to that part.
My point being though, when you're doing a job, something like this, when you have selected your at-large teams, you know what you're not doing a lot of Thursday and Friday? Redoing that work that you did Wednesday into Thursday morning.
No.
You're not like Friday morning, you're not oh, you know what? We probably should move that team from out to in or whatever. I don't think that happens.
If you're out on Tuesday and you're done playing, you're not just moving to in on Thursday.
Well, but I mean, even if you're out on Thursday morning and you win Thursday night, it better be a hell of a win.
Yeah,
because they've already scrubbed you. Your resume has already been discussed.
Well, it's because you have You have 30-something data points already.
Right.
One extra data point, and I agree, shouldn't just automatically override. Like, you weren't good enough to be in the tournament Wednesday. You won one more game, and now you're like, no, you had all these chances.
Yeah. So ultimately,
unless you do something very you do something very impressive, then okay, then maybe it changes things. But
Houston in the quarterfinals, and maybe you've got an argument that you should jump over whoever the last team in was.
Right. Somebody, the 11th team or 12th team from the SEC who lost their first game or something, and they were in that like very last team in spot, and now you've beat the number 3 team. Okay, yes, I'm sure. I totally understand that.
You're going to probably, if you're going to get to there, you're going to have to do something by Wednesday night is my kind of thought process on it, which that would just determine whatever seed you get, who do you play in that second round, and do you get a win? I mean, and right now, you're looking at what? Kansas is probably going to be in that group. Like, if a TCU stays there, TCU's not going to help you any.
Right. I mean, like Kansas is playing.
Fortunately, their metrics are still
right. I mean, everybody's metrics are still going to be. They're going to be, the metric part is going to be good, but like, I feel like now you're getting to the point of like, not the eye test, but there's 100 games going on Saturday or whatever. Like, how, like, you have to beat somebody that catches people's attention. Not
so
just
right
like,
now,
go
ahead.
No, I'm just saying, not just like, oh, they beat a team that was 29th in the net. Like, no, you need to like get a win that like speaks to people.
So right now, the 4 teams that would be potential that they're going to play, potentially play in that second round: BYU, Kansas, Baylor, West Virginia. Kansas is probably the one that moves the needle just because they're 21 still, and Ken Palm roughly around the same in net. I think BYU's playing well, but I don't know how much that would help with Cincinnati because they already beat them. So you're just adding on top of what you've already done. So without beating Houston, they're going to need help. They're going to need teams around them to kind of not get the job done, because it's, getting to Thursday and then winning on Thursday would probably be the only thing that really like makes you feel comfortable. But then you look at what I said earlier, and how much does winning on Thursday help them? Unless maybe you get lucky and you play, like, if you play Houston, that's probably the early game on Thursday. So maybe by 4:00 Thursday, you've got a win over Houston on your resume that you can.
If they lose to Houston, win the last 2, and then make it to the semis, I would feel like enough stuff.
Well, yeah, but you'd have to win Thursday. That's what you'd have to win Thursday to get to.
That's what I mean. Make to the semis. I would feel like you'd have the possibility then of at least having enough stuff happen around you, to put yourself in at least, I don't know, a sweating situation on Sunday.
Yeah. I mean, if you win if you beat Kansas State and Oklahoma State, and then you win the first 2 in the conference tournament, and let's say you lose a close game on Thursday to Iowa State, whatever. I think you'll be sweating on Sunday because you'll feel like you look like the teams around you.
You're right.
I feel like you'll look at it and go, okay, when you combine quad 1, quad 2, like, teams, tournament caliber type teams, our resume is this, and we stack up pretty well. Yeah, we didn't do great in quad 1, but we were one of the best teams in the country in quad 2. Like, you're going to have an argument at least where you feel like you've got a shot. I don't know. I mean, I'll feel much better about the whole thing if they win Saturday, but I don't think they're going to win Saturday. Although I will say, Dave, it'll be interesting I know this is not Houston's DNA, but they have clinched at least a tie for the conference championship. They are coming off a stretch of they just played Texas Tech and Iowa State, and they end after Cincinnati with Kansas Baylor. If this was at home, I think they might be able, but being there, and God, they're just such a fucking machine, man. They just
and it's if they win the conference.
They're gonna win the conference.
Right, but I just mean like if they win that game Saturday, like it's pretty much done, right? I mean,
well, they've already clinched a tie. So yeah, if one more win and it's over. Or the other
holy
way,
shit! Michigan State might just hit a 60-footer at the buzzer to win. But anyway,
there is one thing that might help even more, Dave. I don't think it's going to happen.
What's that?
If Utah beats Arizona tonight in Arizona, then Houston clinches outright conference championship.
Oh yeah, the team that just fired their coach is going to win at Arizona tonight.
Maybe it's win one for the Gipper, Dave. Are they letting him finish out the season? I didn't even hear that. Are they?
I have no idea.
I don't either.
I have not seen one
my Craig Smith knowledge. Dave, you scared Natty Ron.
Hey, I'm sorry. Oh, that's good. He got that off in plenty of time. They also didn't stop. They also didn't stop the clock. Or wait, no, it was on a rebound. Never mind. But yeah, he got that.
Mentioned on the nightcap, Seamus not hitting Reed for the inbound. Why is the guy with one arm there and for the throw in? Because he's your best passer on inbounds plays. He's your guy that reads the defenses better than anybody else. And I think Josh is probably a little more athletic if you're drawing up the home run play. Like I want Josh as the guy on the go route over Seamus, personally.
Yeah, Seamus is more of the blocker than the catcher.
So yeah, I mean, look, like there's no denying, Dave. Like they have not put themselves in a great position. But like I was talking to somebody about this today. Like this is what's frustrating about it. Like in the I take 5 of their losses. Kansas State, Utah, those 2 road games, the 2 West Virginia games, and Villanova. Yeah. Those 5 games. If they go 2-3 in those 5 games, they're in the tournament.
Sure. And I think that's definitely where my frustration lies is like, we did this last year, though. Well, if they could have just gotten this win or could have just gotten that win, I'm like, you can't run it back, which we were in agreement on. Like, there's no revisionist history there on my part. But if you're going to do that, then you can't then drop the same type of games you dropped last year.
Yeah, I think this was different, though, I think this was a whole different ball of wax. In terms of, I think last year they just lost a bunch of heartbreaking.
Yes. No, I just mean the baseline of like,
yeah,
you just can't have games like that. If you're going to take that next step and think that things are moving in the right direction, like you can't blow that game against West Virginia. You can't show up at Kansas State and play like that.
Agreed, but they did.
Yeah.
And here we are. Like, I back to Baylor. Scott Drew said something interesting last night, Dave, that I thought put the NIL.
He also said that Josh Reed's one of the top 5 players in the world.
No, we were talking about his team. And I asked him about Ojanua being out. And they have struggled since he went out. They were playing well. They lost their starting center. It kind of changed their dynamic because they didn't really have any other bigs. Yeah. So they had to move Omir to the 5. They're playing 4 guards around him. And his answer was interesting because he said, if this was 3 or 4 years ago, that injury doesn't hurt us as bad because I have I have a quality guy on the bench behind him.
Right.
But because of roster dynamics now, with NIL and, with the free transfers, he basically just said, look, we spent our money on the top of the roster.
Yeah.
We've talked about it. Spend your money on the top of the roster. But that's kind of from what I know, they probably spent $3 million combined on Edgecombe and Omier. They probably spent another $1 million or so on Jeremy Roach, who hasn't worked out. Robert Wright was a highly ranked freshman. They probably, a couple of $100,000 on him, a pretty big number on Langston Love. And it's just interesting, like even hearing they've got a big NIL budget.
Yep.
Big NIL budget. They spent it kind of how we're talking about let's see UC spend it more of that way. And then Natty Ron, if you say that again, he's a Xavier guy. No, UC did not miss out on Pat Kelsey. He graduated from Xavier. We tried that once 4 years ago, going for a Xavier guy. No, they did not miss on Pat Kelsey. Come on, man. You're going to bring a guy in here that roots against Cincinnati at all costs? What are we doing, Ron? What are we doing? But I just thought it was an interesting, and I wasn't looking for that answer out of him, but that's the answer I got out of him was like, we had to build it the way we had to build it. And because we built it that way, like we didn't have money to go get a really quality backup five.
Yeah.
And one injury, and all of a sudden everything's off the rails.
Well, I mean, I think we didn't, I don't know if we saw it to this extent this year, but UC's obviously battled their handful of injuries the last 2 years. And I think that's where NIL and the immediacy of it and just kind of the inability for most teams. Some teams, I mean, you have your top of the world teams that their rosters are pretty stacked top to bottom. But like when you
Kansas?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just maybe I think theirs is more of a picking guys issue.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
But like you see it with, if you sustain a couple injuries, you don't have that third year guy who's been in your program that is your 7th, 8th, 9th man who you have confidence in that, yes, he's not going to come in and step into a starting role and be like a big difference maker, but he's probably not going to screw things up a la Josh Reed. I mean, his kid's got one turnover, I think, in the last 8 games.
Yeah, and he's playing a lot.
He played 33 minutes last night.
Yeah.
So, like, I think that's where you're seeing some of the effects of NIL is like, guy comes in as a freshman or even as a sophomore, he's not played a bunch, he's going to go somewhere that they're either going to pay him or he's going to go down a level and play. And then you're hit with injuries and you don't have anybody that's been in your program that you can really count on to go in there and not even be the same, but like be comparable.
Not kill you. Like they put that big white European dude, number 22, in for 2 minutes yesterday, and he got eaten alive. Like they couldn't put him back on the floor.
Right.
So they essentially had to play 5 guards when Omier got his 4th foul.
Yeah.
I mean, just, I just thought it was an interesting look at like all of this. Like even the teams with a bunch of money, there's no easy answer. Like there's no simple, this is how you do it and this is how it works.
No,
like
because now it's like, okay, we got a bunch of money and we gave it to these guys. They need to play every game and they need to be good because the rest of our team, we like them, but we don't like them enough to have to play them 25 minutes a game.
Yeah.
We like them enough, obviously, or we wouldn't have them on our squad. But like, if our big dogs aren't getting it done, like we're kind of effed because that's where our money went, and you know?
I mean, just Cincinnati, for an example, that is dealing with this. At points in time yesterday, Dave, there was a point guard, Josh Reed, Tyler Betsy, and Seamoss and Dylan out there. A point guard and 4 power forwards. Why? Connor Hickman got hurt. Dan, it's just hard to play him a lot of minutes right now. Like, I think he's okay in like little 2-3 minute blasts. Like, they've been using him. I mean, he was down to 14 minutes or whatever yesterday, where you're just using him in like small segments to give a guy a breather.
Yeah, I mean, he's the guy that comes in and gets you from the under 15 to the 11.
Right. So Cincinnati's playing really without a 2-guard. CJ Frederick hurts his back again. Like, and you can't really ask Jizzle and Day to play any more than what they're already giving you.
Especially not when you're also asking them to not Day to the extent of Jizzle, but like you're asking them to play a lot and be the focal point of the offense.
And you're asking Day to be the focal point of the defense.
Right. It's
so
one
like,
thing to just
both.
be like, we need you to play 30 minutes. You'll get some. We're not going to run anything for you. You can, get your stuff off offensive rebounds or late shot clock things. But like, no, we're asking you to shoot the ball 20 times a game. We're asking the other guy to guard tenaciously for 35, 30, 33 minutes a game. So,
yeah, it's I was talking to a coaching friend of mine from somewhere else around the country this evening and talking about a lot of this stuff. And it's like, yeah, that, you're essentially now the way that we have to build things was what this guy, the way that we have to build things, you're one injury at the wrong spot away from your season just completely off the rails. And even if it's just like the guy's going to miss 2-3 weeks and be back, like a high ankle sprain or, does something to his wrist or, shoulder, like
pulls a hamstring.
Yeah. You're in that position where the rosters are so thin. And that's why I think that was probably part of like the way that this staff distributed everything was you're able to build a deeper team that way.
Yeah.
Now, you can argue a million ways to Sunday whether that worked or it hasn't worked. It definitely didn't work in January.
Right. I mean, the opposite viewpoint would be like, yes, you have a deeper team, but your variance of really good players to really bad players is more narrow. Like, yes, Team A might have a shallower bench, but their top-end guys are better than yours, so does it really matter that you're deeper if your top-end guys can't take over games?
Yeah. I mean, last night, even with the injury, Baylor had the 2 best players on the floor. Period. Edgecombe and O'Meara were the 2 best players in that game. Like, not even really that close. And Cincinnati was able to overcome it, but, they weren't able to overcome it in Waco when they got beat by 20.
Yeah, and that is the problem that we've seen this year is that they have the ability to overcome it, but too often their top end guys haven't been top end guys.
Right. And then you add on top of that, not doing some of that toughness stuff, not doing some of that stuff that we're seeing from them more of late and was more even, brighter on display against Baylor because it happened in the final seconds. But I would say even, Dave, like without pulling up the play-by-play, like Baylor took the lead a couple times.
Yeah.
In that second half. And Cincinnati responded. And, they got it back out on the Seamoss 3, and then it got close again. And then Day hits the 3 and gives them a little bit of space, and it got close again. Like, that type of thing is what we didn't see in January. We saw, they'd fight for a while, and then when the other team got a little bit of breathing room, there was the life of this team was just completely non-existent. So that's why they're in the predicament that they're in with no question.
Yeah.
That's why you're counting down. Well, got to win the next one. Got to win the next one. Now, if they could have got the job done at Iowa State, that would have saved them from having to deal with what they have to deal with on Saturday, and we'd feel a lot better about things right now. But
they don't have. I mean, Utah probably is considered a bad, like, it's not even really considered a bad loss, but like in their situation, it would be considered a bad loss.
I mean, Utah's 78 in Ken Palm.
I mean, so that's not like, it's not I guess you just have to look at things a little bit differently. Like, that's a bad loss when you're in the Big 12 now. Obviously, like when they were in the AAC, that was not a bad loss. That's not a bad loss at all. But
Oklahoma State last year.
Yeah.
Can't lose that game. And they did.
And so they don't have those like just excruciating bad losses, but then like the Iowa State game, or they don't have that win that negates the volume of losses where it's like, yeah, they don't really have a bad loss. They don't have a loss to someone in the 150s to 250s, but like they also don't have any wins that overtakes a couple of those losses where you're like, they're not bad, but they're going to stick out a little bit when you're comparing to other teams here in what, 3 weeks or so.
And I think it's still, people get mad at me for saying this. I don't care. But it's still the learning curve of the Big 12. Like,
okay, can I ask a question on that? Because I've been thinking about it. How many years do we get to say that? Whether for any sport, not just basketball.
I would think into your third year, you should be up to speed as you're like. I don't think it's going to change a whole lot after that, but I do think there's an advantage. Like if you're Baylor and you've been playing in this league for however many years, like there's an understanding, especially if you go back to like the last 5 years where the Big 12 has been really, really good.
Yeah.
Like you've gone through that with an understanding of we can't have a slip up in like the Utah game or the West Virginia game. Like I still think for a team that is adjusting to it, it's difficult. It's a hell of a like adjustment to your brain says we're playing one of the worst teams in the league. But the reality is that's still a top 100 team. Like, in the old American Athletic Conference days, that would have been like the third best team in the league. Because the fourth best team in the league was like 127. So
sure. I mean, I laugh at Memphis fans are now complaining about how they have no good wins. I'm like, well, welcome to the club from for a decade or so, straight. I'm maybe I'm being too harsh. I think you get a year. After a year, what is surprising about the Big 12 this year that wasn't like, oh my God, this didn't happen last year. We had no idea this was coming.
Yeah, but it doesn't make it just like all of a sudden easy.
But I don't care at this point, Chad. We haven't been to the freaking tournament in 6 years.
Well, what do those other 4 years have to do with these two? Like, I understand the fan frustration of that, but just because you missed the tournament 4 years before you got into the Big 12, that makes it worse.
It compounds
that makes it worse. Your team hasn't been good enough. You weren't ready to go into the Big 12.
So everybody, clearly everybody, whether it was us, national people that think they're smart, national people we think are dumb, coaches in the conference, the media that covered, everybody was wrong about this team.
No, I don't think they were. I think they had a terrible month. I don't think that like makes everybody wrong about this team. I think they had, unfortunately, I think the Kansas State game genuinely screwed up a lot because the reality was like it was going to be a pretty big upset to beat the three teams that they played second, third, and fourth in the conference at that point in time. Kansas was playing really well. Baylor was playing really well. And Arizona had really just started to like really get on a roll. So if you win that Kansas State game and you get through that 1-3, I don't think that pressure mounts because then they won, they got to win 2 wins. You would have been 3-3 at that point in time. And I don't think this confidence drain that we saw would have kind of taken over like it did in that stretch from Texas Tech, the Utah road trip, and West Virginia at home. Because that was a team that was just playing without any life at all at that point.
Right.
Like they were playing like I do think, Dave, the one thing that couldn't be attributed to last year that a bunch of teams are finding out this year, that Utah 1-2 step is a bitch.
Yes, I'm not saying it is.
Most teams are going 0-2 on that trip,
Right.
including good ones. So you threw that in the middle. Like, they should have played better in January. Like, I don't know what else. Like,
right, they should have. But like, I can't just be like, oh, they should have played better in January. Like, no,
sure you can.
Wipe it away. No, I don't.
Not wiping it away. It happened, but they responded by going 5-2 over their last 7 games. Like, they did respond to it, which is what you want to see from a team that didn't perform in a stretch.
Yes, I would hope a bunch
level that they should have performed.
I would hope, a lot of juniors and seniors and sophomores that have played a lot of minutes would respond to that. If they didn't, then we'd be having a totally different conversation.
I mean, there are teams in the conference that are not responding to it.
I don't care about those teams. I'm not.
You don't care to look at the conference for context.
Context is irrelevant. I'm talking about UC Bearcat basketball. What happened at Kansas or Texas Tech doesn't matter to me.
Then you're just not interested in having an honest discussion about like what happens in the league.
I'm very interested in having an honest discussion. I think they've been underachieving team based on everything that we thought coming into the, whether you say it's just one bad month. Okay, that's part of the season. Sure. The Bengals stunk at the beginning of the season. They were an underachieving team. They won 5 games in a row to end the year. Great. They didn't make the playoffs. I don't care. It was a failure of a season.
Okay.
It's the exact same thing we're talking about.
No, it's not the exact same thing. The Bearcats don't have fucking Joe Burrow. That's why the Bengals are an embarrassment. They've got 3 of the best players in the sport of football. Cincinnati doesn't have anybody on their roster that's top 5 at their position in the Big 12. Not a single player that's top 5 at their position in the Big 12.
Okay. Is that not a problem?
Do you have an extra $3 million to solve the problem? $2 million to solve the problem? Because that's go look at the top 5 players.
We need an extra $3 million to get one top 5 player at their position?
Probably an extra, at least if you want 2 of them, which most teams have, then you need 3.
We don't have any.
About 1, I know.
So we need to double our NIL budget just to get one top 5 player.
To get 2, like 2
well,
top 5 players at their position. 1 isn't a guarantee of anything in this league. You'd need an extra $1.5 million minimum.
Hey, fans better start ponying up even more.
I don't like that that's the reality of it, but go look at the top 8 spending teams in the league. 7 of them are the top 7 teams in the Big 12.
Like, there's just no accountability.
7 of 8.
Like, fans have to pay for more, get us better players.
That's the NCAA's problem. That's not like I don't know what to tell you. Like I can tell you, I know who the top 8 spending teams are.
Yeah.
I know 7 of them are in the top 8 of the league. And all of them have $1.5 million to $2 million players that are at the top of their roster that are fueling where they are in the standings.
My question becomes then, why will next year be any different? Because we're not going to have that money.
They'll have more. I don't know how much more.
How would they have more?
Because you have what you have in NIL and revenue sharing is coming on board. So
but so will everybody else.
Of course.
So how will it be any different than this year?
I don't know that it will. Like, I can't guarantee that it will. I can guarantee the way that it's set up, they should have more money to spend on the coming roster than they did the year before, because you'll have whatever you've got in your bank account in NIL that you're probably going to try to spend before July 1st. And then you'll have revenue shares starting July 1st. So whatever's there, I don't know what's there, but whatever's there, you will have to spend, and then you will also get roughly $4 million after that to build your roster. And this year's roster is at or below $4 million.
Right.
So you will have more money to put your roster together. Now, the players are probably going to be more expensive because guess what everybody else is doing, right? It's going to be doing as soon as we get into this offseason is they're going to be emptying their NIL war chest and doing everything they can to get whatever they can get.
Yes, there will be more money in the system, but it's that way for everybody. So if you are on the lower end of things now, you're still going to be on the lower end of things.
They're in the middle end of things. Like they're honestly in the worst place to be, kind of.
Well,
because they're well, I mean, but if you don't have any money, you don't have any money, right? You're not. There's no expectation to be good if you're at $2 million to spend on your roster in a league where Kansas is spending 10 and BYU spending 12 and Texas Tech is spending 8 or 9, like you're not going to be competitive. Cincinnati's in a spot where they're not miles and miles away from the second tier, but they're far enough away that the difference is like Kansas can fuck up. Now I know they've done, but AJ Storr being bad didn't kill them. And they're paying AJ Storr like $1.5 million.
Yeah.
Getting Jaden Nunn from Duke wasn't cheap for Baylor.
No, Jeremy Roach,
wasn't cheap for Baylor. But he's not really doing a whole lot.
He's coming off the bench now. I mean,
he's certainly not worth the 1.3 or whatever they paid him. But they can miss a little bit because they've got an extra war chest of money. Like, I don't have a great answer for you, Dave, in terms of that, but it is the difference. Like, when you look at what the teams at the top have that Cincinnati doesn't have, like Aaron said it last week, or I think after the Iowa State game. Like, they got a bunch of really good supporting actors. They've got an ensemble cast, Dave, but they don't have a leading man. And that's where that extra, if you're in the $5.5, $6 million range, you're able to go get that leading man to pair with all your supporting actors. And is NIL combined with rev share going to be enough? I don't know. But it will give them more to play with. I guess the only difference being if you don't retain a bunch, like they got a bunch of quote unquote discounts from guys that stayed.
Right.
That could have gotten more money elsewhere. So they got some discounts that if you don't keep your roster together, you're not getting
right. Like if you
discounts from anybody.
If you let's just I don't even know. I'm not going to play the game, but like say 5 or 6 guys, counting the freshmen, counting who coming in, counting the guys on the team now, and you're having to go find 6 new players from the portal, or I don't know why you would add another freshman at this point, but do you have enough to do 2 things? To get that player or those 2 players we're talking about, plus fill out your roster with Big 12 caliber players that give you the chance to make the tournament next year.
Yeah. Justin, just stop. Stop.
He wouldn't be the first coach to do it.
Yes, he would.
Brian Kelly's doing it right now.
Yeah, sure he is. Sure he is. How about Wes give up some of his contract for NIL? Doesn't happen. You give up some of your contract like Jim Harbaugh did so you don't get fired. Brian Kelly's giving up some of his contract so he doesn't get fired, Dave.
No comment. And I do want to say, Bearcat 101, I am very positive almost all the time. I'm also trying to be very realistic.
Yeah.
And so when I look at this stuff, I want to see, okay, like they're not in the field as of right now. I think we can all agree with that. They have
Yeah.
a chance to play themselves into the field. If they don't, my mind instantly and has been going to, okay, what changes?
I
How
mean,
do the shortcomings of this roster, given all the things we know about where they stand in NIL, in anything else, how does that change going forward? I don't really see necessarily a path for how that changes.
I see the path. It's will they be able to execute the path?
Well, I mean,
But
yeah,
you need. Go ahead.
I'm assuming, like, I'm going past the see it, like, how does it actually happen?
You have to go find a legitimate, like 4 or 5 that can get you points. Like first and foremost, I think. And then to couple with that, you need a scoring guard. Like you have to, the rosters that are at the top of this league have those 2 elements. You know, Houston has it. Iowa State has, well, to a lesser extent, but Iowa State has it. They rely on their guards a little bit more, which is why they've maybe been a little bit more inconsistent at times because the shooting comes and goes when you're that heavily reliant. Yeah. Even if your guards are like first team all conference type good, and their guards are, they've had off nights. They've dealt with a little bit of injuries. You saw what Momcilovic being out did to them. Like that's really what caused them to kind of spiral a little bit. It's Justin, thank you for becoming a new member. Much appreciated. But like if you go down the list, those elements are what have made the best teams in this league. Texas Tech with Toppin and McMillan and Anderson, like they've got a host of guards, but they surround them with a guy that can absolutely get you a bucket pretty much anytime you need in JT Toppin. Yeah. You know, I think when you're looking at Kansas has got Dickinson, BYU, a little bit different because they rely on the 3-point shot. Like they're built to rely on the 3-point shot, but the Cada kid's really good. Like gives them,
he's like the perfect complement of being like super athletic, and anytime you really press out on the shooters, he just destroys you inside. Yeah,
and then Arizona, kind of the same deal. Like they're getting a lot from the Awaka and Vassar or Vesser or whatever his name is, and then you've got like that complement of guards that started with Caleb Love. Like that's one way or another. You've got to go find a big that can score and a guard to go with, a complement of what you're going to bring back.
Yes.
And that's the path to it. I mean, the key thing here has got to be this is the thing that why I bring up like learning on the job. Wes has got to continue to learn on the job on what it takes to win in this league. And I don't think it's easy. I think it is assumed, okay, you had one go through it, like now you're going to be perfect. Or now you've got it figured out. I don't think that's realistic. I don't think that's
assuming that. I'm not assuming that it's easy.
You have stated very clearly you expect it to be done. Right?
Yeah, if I don't mean it, I didn't say it. I thought it would be easy. I just said that I think you should be able to figure it out after a year.
I'm guessing they thought they had it figured out. And then you had 3 guys at the top of your roster that all decided to disappear for a month.
Right.
I mean, I think we're seeing right now over the past 7 games that when those guys are reasonably playing well, that's how this roster was supposed to look. But for whatever, I mean, there's a million different reasons you can come up with. And for each guy, it's probably different. For Seamoss, those other 2 guys not playing well eliminated his airspace. For Jizzle, he just couldn't buy a bucket for whatever the baby coming, like whatever you want to credit it to, the things that he relying on the most inefficient shot in sports to be your go-to bread and butter, not being able to get to the free throw line, which is something I think I would address first and foremost going into this offseason. I don't think you can survive in this league. Forget the bad free throw shooting team thing. I don't think you can legitimately over 3 months survive in this league if you don't get to the free throw line.
No,
if you don't have a consistent stream of points.
Generate all your baskets just in, this probably 80 to 90% of your points come in the half court.
Yeah.
The other 10 come on, the other 8% come on fast break, and then you get 2% of your total point output from the free throw line.
They are 355th in the country and free throw attempts to field goal attempts. If you really want to talk
I just don't get it when you have four guys that
I get it.
I would say are what?
They don't drive hard to the rim and draw contact.
I know you have you have 4 dudes that are I would put in the top whatever percentile of athleticism and ability to do that.
But they don't have the ability to do that, or they would. I think a lot of it is body control. A lot of it is just that natural, want for contact. They don't SK wanted contact. Jaren wanted contact. If we're talking about guys that we have empirical evidence that they got to the free throw line a ton. I don't think those guys, I think in theory, yes. But that's part of the problem that I've had with the roster construction is a lot of it is in theory. But we've never seen any of those guys be high free throw rate guys. I mean, Dan was a little bit better last year, but what does Dan do when he gets to the rim? Contorts his body. It's never straight up and through.
No.
Jizzle done a better job of it in the past 2 weeks. And guess what? His output his production has increased because he's not doing a great job of it, but he's doing a better job of getting 3, 4, 5 points at the line. If you go back to SK and Jaren, it was 8 points a game from the free throw line. And if you only make 3 baskets a game, if you have one of those nights where you only make 3 baskets, but you make 8 free throws, you're still at 14 points, 13, 14 points for the game. If, adding in threes or whatever, however the case may be. But that's what, in terms of roster construction, that's the thing for me that they need to sit down and really, really examine is we have to go get guys that know how to get fouled and get to the line. Have to. Because I just don't think it's sustainable in this league. That's you talked about Baylor last night. That's one of the ways that if you go back to that first game when they blew UC out, got to the line. It wasn't a ton, but they got to the line. Last night, they only had 5 free throw attempts. You kept them off the line. You were able to win because you got to the line. You made more free throws. That's I think that's a Bob Knight thing that he always insisted. That was one of his basic core principles. We want to make more free throws than they shoot. And for whatever reason, the way that they have scouted and evaluated players, maybe they thought because of the way Jizzle was built and the fact that he does play down, more downhill, they thought that they could develop that in him. But he doesn't go strong all the way to the backboard. Stops, he fades away, he doesn't absorb contact. They just don't have anybody on this roster that looks to absorb contact, whether they make the basket or not. They're too busy trying. I think maybe this is the gist of it. They're too busy trying to make the basket, right?
Yeah.
And in trying to make the basket, they're taking harder shots and not getting to the free throw line. I think if you want to really talk about something structurally that can be changed in an off season, you structurally find a way. Maybe you're not going to go to the top of the fucking nation in free throw rate, but can you get to the middle? Like, can you at least be respectable? Can you not be 355th?
I mean, how many teams are there?
360 something.
I was like
364. They're 355th. They're ninth worst in the country at free throw attempts to field goal attempts. So, like, yeah, if we're talking big picture, like, what do I think can change in the offseason? That has to be a giant part of the equation. Has to be a giant part of the equation. I know I got off on a tangent there, but like, you really want me to talk about something that's been on my mind for a while. Like, people complained about their free throw percentage. It doesn't matter what their free throw percentage is. They never go to the line.
Right. Like you could they could be the best free throw shooting team in the country, but if you only take 8 of them a game, you're not maximizing the fact that you're the best free throw shooting team in the country.
Right. We're 60% from the line. We're one of the worst free throw shooting teams in the country. Yeah, but you're 3 for 5 every game. It doesn't matter how many free throws you miss if you don't take any. So, that's one of those things that when I look at it, like, how does this thing have to change? And I've talked about it with a lot of people around the program. Like, do you guys see this? Is this something that, like, yeah, like, we know, like, that's not, especially in this league where when you are playing against top teams in the country, you are playing against teams that are going to play good defense. Even if it's not great defense, they're going to play good defense, and they're going to play some of them elite offense, but most everybody is pretty good offensively.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have probably an 18 game schedule is what it's going to more than likely be again next year. You might play 2 teams that stink, 2 games against teams that stink on defense, and 2 games against teams that can't throw it in the ocean. And everything else is going to be pretty even. So,
I mean, just at the top of the league, Dave, and that's like, ultimately that's what we're talking about, right? They need to get to the top of the league. Top 7 teams in the league in offensive rating: 8, 18, 10, 23, 12, 57, and 13.
What did you see now?
They have actually climbed pretty far back up the list to 87.
I mean, they were 141, I think. I don't know if that was the lowest. That number sticks out in my head.
Right at 140 was the lowest after or going into that stretch where they're starting with, what's it, UCF, where then all of a sudden they
combined to score 88 points in 80 minutes of basketball.
Yeah. Yeah. They were, I mean, they've jumped, 60 spots in offense over the last 7 games. Not easy to do when you've already got, and then on defense, Dave, those teams that I was just talking about, 3, 21, 27, 12, the BYU 69, Kansas is 5, Baylor 70. What?
You said 69. I said nice.
Nice. I thought you said yikes. My bad.
No.
So you have 2 teams that aren't great defensively, but the other 5 teams in the top 7, 3, 21, 27, 12, and 5, they're all going to be able to score, and they're almost all going to be pretty damn good defensively. If you can't get to the free throw line, I don't think you can get up into that echelon. I just don't. I appreciate you, Gray Bush, for taking us through the final minutes of this exhilarating Kansas State UCF game. UCF up 2 with 12.8 seconds.
Is there an outcome we want? I have no idea.
No, neither of them are really. Both of them are dead. They're dead. They're dead in the water. So this one doesn't really matter. I think there are some games coming up at 9 that do have an impact. But yeah, I mean, that's the type of thing, though, when you talk about how do you continue if you didn't learn everything in year 1, like, you have to keep learning in year 2. If you thought this was the way a roster construction was going to work, and the thing that sucks is it might be the best way for Cincinnati going forward to have a really good, solid 1 through 5 and just say, look, the other teams are going to have a better 1 and 2, but we're going to emphasize we're going to have a better 1 through 6 or 1 through 7. I don't think going all the way to 9, it's, but because of how bad 1 through 3 played in January, our view of this is not going to be good. Like if that's how, say they change the roster, but they still kind of have the same roster construction plan.
Sure.
It will immediately be dismissed because we've seen it not work the way that it was supposed to work as it was designed. But you have to be able to look at it and say, okay, what mistakes did we make? And maybe it is just going out and getting 1. Like, okay, we're going to build 2 through 7 a similar way, and then we're going to go out and get a number 1. Like, that might be the better path forward. But Wes and staff have to be able to objectively look at this and say, what didn't work? Did we do the other thing that I think you can't do in today's college basketball and say, I think our 3 guys that shot 28% from 3 are going to get better. I don't think you can do that.
Right. I don't necessarily disagree with, I mean, this is what we've talked about. I don't necessarily disagree with the way they put the roster together. If they did the same thing again next year, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with it. I would just want to know, okay, because you think it's the right way to do it, or you think this is the way at Cincinnati in the current landscape that we have to do it. Because they might say, oh yeah, we think the right way to do it is to get
2 studs.
Pay 2 guys $2 million a piece. But
right.
We also know that's just not in the card. So this is the way we have to do it. Okay. What are you taking from this year to next year that keeps you from, and obviously you can't, each year is its own thing. So you obviously can't say, well, next year we're just not going to have a month where our top 3 guys
stink.
You have no control over that, so that's not a tangible thing that you can tell me we're learning from this year.
Yeah.
So like
we're gonna make sure we don't have our top 3 players play like complete ass for 8 consecutive games or 10.
So what if you're gonna have to do it this way? What are things that like you can construct the roster in a similar fashion, but I mean, talk analytics, talk whatever you want. Like the payments might be the same or similarly structured, but how do the players change? How do the qualities of the players change in that way that you have to lay it out on a spreadsheet? We know sports aren't played on a spreadsheet, but like the dollar amounts are going to go up, but we're still going to break them out kind of similarly to the way we did this year.
Yeah.
But here's how we're going to be different and how we think we're going to be better is because these players specifically, they do these things that we didn't have this year, or we're going to change our philosophy in the way that we've talked about, playing with more pace, playing more open. It seemed that when they put Day into the starting lineup, that did help a little bit. Does that become, I mean, everybody can say they want to play fast. I mean, but like the numbers are the numbers. They were playing one of the slowest tempos in the country and still might be, but it is a little bit faster. And holy cow, they've been more efficient. So do you maybe just kind of like I said a couple weeks ago of the like, we know it's not as easy as just saying play faster, but do you have to maybe just kind of say like, we're going to dictate the tempo and we're going to live with what happens because of it? Like we just can't get into these games where it's just a half court game because if our main guys aren't firing on all cylinders, then we just get totally bogged down. And that was more of a conversation in January, but then they did seem when they did make some lineup changes to play faster, and it did seem to open things up for them a little bit.
This is an interesting point, Keith. It's a great topic because it's very tricky. It's very easy to say this, but need more basketball players on the roster and less athletes. Harder to work your way through the kinks when you don't know what to do to correct it. While I agree, do you really want, look around the league, do you really want to go through this league as the unathletic team?
That was my complaint in the AAC jumping up to the Big 12.
Yeah.
Is like looking at guys and being like, these guys aren't dudes.
Right. So the one way I do think that can work, Keith, is very similar to what BYU does. But what does BYU do, I think, at an elite level? And it's not specifically shoot the basketball. It is move the basketball via the pass. Because if you move the basketball via the pass, you don't have to be as athletic. Because the ball pops, and it's much more difficult on a defense. We've talked about this all year. It's much more difficult on a defense when a team is moving the ball via the pass. But that takes the kind of complete change in philosophy that is very hard to navigate. Very hard to navigate.
I also think I personally am not going to slight BYU's athleticism either.
They're more athletic than you like. Yes, I would agree with that as well.
It's because
like,
they're gym
Gemin
rats.
is an excellent athlete.
They're gym rats, and their dad and their coach's kids, and they're more quick than fast, and all the other white guy analogies you want to throw out there. Like those dudes can play. I mean, the one dude is the Russian is going to go in the lottery, so he's got to be somewhat athletic.
Keita is a very good athlete. I think Richie Saunders is a pretty good athlete. Now, like Dalen Hall is not a great athlete. Trevin Nell is not a great athlete, but that is not a roster completely devoid of athleticism.
You can't get up and down the court and score 80-something points a game if you're just a bunch of like 6'1", below the rim type dudes.
Yeah. Now, the team that's been able to kind of blend that better than anyone is the team I would love to see UC copycat. Can you guess?
Arizona.
No.
No.
Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Because those dudes play with a really high basketball IQ. They have some dudes with serious like basketball skill. Like Christian Anderson is incredible for a freshman, the way that he plays the game. JT Toppin understands angles and, leverage and how to get a guy on his hip and when to turn and where to turn and which hand to use. And, that type of skill, I think can help you. But they're still super athletic.
Right. But they're being developed too. Like they didn't just walk in with at the level
they recruit that, like they recruit what they have. Like those guys, they were recruited because of high basketball IQ. Have they been developed? Well, yes. I'm not taking that away. What I'm saying is that is damn near the top of their list. Is this kid really basketball savvy? That's something that McCaslin...
That's not at the top of everybody's list?
Not necessarily, no. Or else everybody would have, maybe there's just not that many high IQ basketball players out there. But they put a premium on it. Like that is something that they very specifically look for. Like that's the style that I would like to see trending a little bit more towards. Then there is a middle ground from what you're talking about, Keith. that is difficult to accomplish, but it's possible because there are teams in this league doing it. I do the Arizona similar, although they have the ultimate best of times, worst of times guy in Caleb Love that can shoot you into the with any game in the country and then shoot you right out of it.
He can, but I've been more impressed with like the Vesser dude than anybody. I mean, I knew what Tobe Awaka was because he was at Tennessee, and he's still only a sophomore.
Really good.
But he's still only a sophomore. So, but like, I don't think they've gotten near as much out of Trey Townsend as they thought they were going to.
What? Guess why, Dave?
Because he's a below the rim.
He's not a great athlete.
Horizon League player.
He's not a great athlete. That's what they thought they were getting with him, right? We're going to go get a really high IQ, less athletic, like guy
post dude.
Yeah,
and you just got some. They've gotten in games where they can't play him,
right? So that's where you have to be really careful with this whole like, go get more smart players that you sacrifice athleticism. You're going to sacrifice athleticism and beat Houston? Really? That doesn't seem like a good way to go about it, does it?
Can I ask? Can we ask just a quick Houston question? Who's guarding Juwan Roberts?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I guess you're going to have to hope that Aziz can do something similar to him.
What? Who's guarding Tugler?
It's going to have to be Dylan. Those are the two guys.
I mean, if Aziz guards, that's got 3 fouls in quick
Dylan
order.
doesn't. Dylan's giving up what, 40 pounds to Juwan Roberts?
Yeah, I don't know.
Dylan Mitchell is listed at 6'8".
There's another thing. There's another thing I think you talked about, or I don't know if we talked about it on this show, or like you talked about the free throw shooting. They got to have a front line that is more than 220.
Yeah, I know I've heard a lot of like what's going on with the Monster Factory. There's only so much weight you can put on dudes. Like
they got a lot of James Whites.
Yeah. Like a lot of Shaq Thomases on this roster.
Darnell Wilkes. Like they tried, yeah. They were in there, they're lifting their faces off, eating all the food you can eat. Like I'd love to give him, my extra tonnage that I'm carrying around.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's two things. Like if you're gonna say we're gonna rebuild the roster and we gotta do it the same way, okay, how do we get to the line more, and how do we get some bigs that can body some dudes and not get put into the basket support in a game that maybe the refs aren't going to call shit. We can't just throw our hands up next year and go, well, I guess we can't win this game because they're not going to call any fouls, so that means we're not going to get any rebounds.
Yeah,
like that can't be the answer.
You need to be a little less light in the loafers. Like Aziz is thin, Dylan is thin.
I'd be the heaviest guy on the team.
I've lost some weight. I don't know. I don't ever check. I've had like 4 people tell me in the last 2 weeks, you're losing weight. And I'm like, not trying. Maybe I got a tapeworm that I'm unaware of.
Have you gotten your eyes checked lately?
And I think I am.
But no, they definitely, that's a spot that I think, and not just some huge guy that plods up and like,
no, 6'8", 240, 235. Like, that's Juwan Roberts, 6'8", 235.
Yeah.
You know how much bigger he looks than Dylan Mitchell, who's 6'8", 210? Like, it's a 25-pound difference that looks like 40.
I mean, we saw it last year. You're still gonna like, just the profiles are gonna look striking on Saturday.
Yeah. So we've gone on. We didn't talk about the Baylor game at all. We haven't talked about the Houston game at all.
like I said, I don't have a lot to say about the game itself. Like, they needed to win and they won. Like,
Yeah.
there's 3 regular season games left. I mean, what, man, if they could just do this a little bit better, like, we're way past that point.
Yeah.
Like, you got to win basketball games. I really don't care how it happens.
Although they have done things a lot better.
Yeah.
They've improved. For those that Wes can't coach, Wes doesn't know what he's doing. Unfortunately, it took a pretty low point to improve from, but he has the team playing back up to the this is the team we thought we were going to get, right? Like, the way that they played over the last 2.5 weeks is what we thought we were going to see. Since the final horn of that West Virginia game at home, it has been about what we figured Cincinnati would look like. Should I put on? I'll put on Utah and Arizona. I don't know, to be disappointed. But it's, again, you're right. It's ultimately, unless they can figure out some way, somehow to get into the tournament, it's a disappointment, because that was the expectation, and a reasonable expectation. And if it doesn't happen, it's a disappointment.
Yeah, I don't think anybody was saying like top 4 seed, second weekend team. It's just like, show me progression. Show me we were close last year, and now this year we made it. I'm not being greedy.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you make the tournament, then you just, who knows what your matchup is, and whatever happens. But like, I just, if they aren't able to make the tournament again, I'm just kind of going to be left with a lot of questions.
Yeah. And I guess it's also the difference in, like, doing this has, like, it hasn't pulled all of the fan out of me, but it has changed, like, the way my brain works when I look at things. Because when I look at things, I don't look at it as, they didn't meet my expectations, it's a massive disappointment, and everything's got to change. Like, I look at it a little bit more from above, I think, than from, I think you're looking at it from surface level. Like,
I'm looking at it from both.
But more like, you're a fan. Like, your reactions are more rooted in, like, fandom, and you also do, because we do this, you do some of the other stuff. But, like, my brain goes to, okay, it didn't work. Like, I don't think they're far off from where we wanted them to be. If we can look at it and say there's 2 games, you can take these 5 games, if you can change the outcome of 2 of them, they're exactly where we thought, would be, like, the reasonable expectation for this team. What screwed up? What malfunctioned? What reasonably can change? What's reasonably not going to change is they're not going to all of a sudden be a $10 million roster.
Right.
So that's not worth even looking at it from that. How do they match Arizona and Houston and Baylor and BYU? They can't, because they're going to have to do it fundamentally different than those teams, largely because those teams have the ability to miss on $1 million player, $1.5 million player, and it's not the end of the world. Like, does it hurt? Yeah. Does it hurt Kansas that AJ Storr can barely get on the floor? Obviously. Does it hurt Baylor that Jeremy Roach is okay instead of really good? Obviously. But those teams had enough that they could survive that. We'll find out with Baylor. Like, that's going to be fascinating to see what happens down the stretch for them. They have 2 wins that should get them to 10, right? Although, who knows with Oklahoma State right now, but they've got Oklahoma State at home, TCU away. TCU has been good on their home floor, but what does TCU look like now that the season's essentially over? And then they have Houston at home to end the regular season. But I don't know. I get it. Like, I thought a reasonable expectation for this team would be wearing white in the first round of the tournament. So like an 8 or 7, 8 seed, somewhere in there, I felt would be a reasonable expectation, which is essentially like BYU, right?
Yeah, I think BYU is going to be a top 8 seed.
I wonder. The other thing that kind of stands out to me is that, to kind of wrap this thing up, like there were 4 teams kind of in the same grouping coming into the season. Those top 5 teams were the top 5 teams, right? That everybody kind of consensus: Houston, Iowa State, Baylor, Kansas, Arizona. Those were considered like that tier A. Tier B: Cincinnati, Texas Tech, BYU, Kansas State.
Yeah.
Those were expected to be that next tier. Texas Tech has exceeded expectations. BYU is probably right at, would you say, expectations?
Yeah, I mean I think they're easily in the top 6. I mean, who would you put above them?
7. That would be 7.
Well, 6, 7, yeah. I mean
that would be 7.
I think there's a pretty hard line. Well, wait, where did you have Baylor?
They were expected to be in that top 5.
Well, they're not there, are they?
They're no, probably not now, because I think they've lost 5 of 7. Like they were in line to be there until Ojinwuna got hurt.
Yeah.
They were playing at that level of top 5. So
BYU,
I guess
they've had a bunch of guys in and out of the lineup too.
Yeah. So you move Texas Tech up to 5 to replace Baylor. I'd have BYU ahead of Baylor. I think they're just barely ahead of them in like
yeah,
net.
6. The top 7 seem pretty set in the, I mean, I think there's a to me there's a fairly large divide then after that group.
Well, the metrics would say you're absolutely right. Because it goes from Baylor, who is 7th at 30. West Virginia is 49. And then Cincinnati is 53. So Cincinnati's 23 spots on KenPom from that top 7 group.
Yeah, I mean to me that's
you missed the mark.
Yeah.
You didn't hit your expectation. Like I don't, that's not even remotely what I'm arguing. What I'm saying is, for whatever reason, January bottomed out. Like they weren't able to stop the free fall. Is it frustrating? Absolutely. Is it sports sometimes?
Sure.
Yeah, it is. Sometimes you get in your head and you can't get out of it. But I do give them a lot of credit for figuring it out and getting back, because they could like easy in this day and age to just pack it in and say, you know what? Like Kansas State has played, they lost tonight. So they have played 17 Big 12 games. They had a 6-game winning streak. In the other 11 games, they're 1-10. That's a team that clawed their way out of it, but then as soon as they went to Utah and they lost to BYU and Utah, the bottom fell out again.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only reason that I'm not looking at it entirely negatively. Like, with the acknowledgement that they are on a path that did not meet expectations. At least they were able to right the ship and show that they were able to play at the level that we did expect them to play at. They did it through December, and then they did it again in February forward. So that tells me it's not a situation that needs entirely blown up, but it is a situation that needs some remodeling. I don't think it needs like a complete overhaul. But I think you have to look at it and say, okay, like this didn't work. So we got to set that thinking aside. This didn't work. We got to set that thinking aside. This is what we have watched work in this league. We need to incorporate that more. Like, that's kind of where my brain is at.
Totally get it.
And we'll see what happens Saturday.
Big dub.
I will
not be at the Holy Grail. So there's, which although
maybe they lost to Iowa State, so maybe we need you to like switch it up.
I have dinner plans.
What time's your dinner plans?
Well, it's up in Dayton. I got stuff going on. But no. I mean, could they? Sure. But
Houston should rest players. That's why I'm rooting for Utah here, Matt. I'm rooting for Utah because if Utah beats Arizona, Arizona's only up 14 at the end of the first half, Dave.
That's it?
Yeah. That's it. Just I mean, Baylor came back from down 13 at halftime yesterday. They didn't
Kelvin
get the win.
Sampson is a lot of things. Mostly good. Resting players, not something I see.
That is not a Kelvin Sampson thing. Maybe the only things I can come up with. You're in a really brutal 5-game stretch, and Cincinnati is that middle game with 2 big games here, Iowa State and Texas Tech, and then 2 big games here, Kansas and Baylor. Cincinnati's in the middle. Maybe they're just a little in like a take a breath mode.
I think UC has to. I think for them to have a chance to win, they have to play at the most breakneck pace they've ever even imagined playing at.
But you can't. They don't let you.
Well, that's what. But you can't. They're certainly not going to win if they get into a half-court slog. Like what is the better what do they have the better shot of winning the game at? Trying to play at an insane tempo or slowing it down?
No, I don't think you slow it down. I just think trying to run on them with the way that they get back is essentially like just driving a race car into like a concrete wall over and over again.
I'm not saying that it's like it's the better idea of 2 bad ideas. I
don't disagree with you.
Neither is optimal, but like if you're going to win the game, which way do you have the most possible potential to win? Slow it down and hope that they miss a bunch of shots, because I mean we're not exactly lighting the we can have a game where we don't make a bunch of shots either, because their defense is still going to be good, whether they're making shots or not.
Well, the game is going to be played at a slow pace, Dave.
Oh yeah, both teams play. Houston plays at an even slower pace than UC does.
Houston is 345 on offensive tempo and 359 on defensive tempo.
I think we should just shoot the ball within the first 10 seconds of the shot clock, no matter what.
Just take a bad shot every trip.
I mean, no, just you got a glimmer of a shot. Just shoot it quick, because guess what's not going to happen? You're not going to run good offense for 25 seconds and then get a better shot.
No, you're not. They have allowed teams to kind of hang around until the 2 last segments, and
until
then
they're tired. Until Kelvin's tired of letting them hang around, and then he. Yeah.
Well, I think they just beat you up. Like you just get to that under 8 timeout, and physically you're so exhausted from dealing with them that they're able to take and they're usually up by like 6-7 points at that stage.
Yeah, and then they end up
take it out to like
14 at halftime.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about at the end of the game.
At the end.
Iowa State kept it close. I think they were leading with 9 minutes left. And Texas Tech was right there.
I was watching and
or Monday night.
waiting for them to blow them out. And
Yeah.
then Iowa State, they got them to turn the ball over, which was interesting.
So the thing, the more realistic thing to happen, Dave, is you get them in a 57-55, 57-50 rock fight, and you just hope they go cold at the end, which they never do. But running with them, I just like they wear you out playing slow. Like they beat you up and wear you out playing at the slowest. It doesn't make any damn sense.
You know what they don't have though?
What don't they have? Josh Reed?
They don't have Josh Reed. They don't have one of the 5 best basketball players on the globe.
Most efficient. We went with most efficient.
No, I said best. I mean it. I put it out in the Twitterverse. I said best.
You did. You said best. I don't have really anything else to get to tonight. Do you?
I don't think so.
We'll get a real quick. We'll get a Turtles Brew read in here, since we just spent an hour and 45 minutes on basketball. Where is it? There it is. 0 sugar, 0 carbs, gluten-free, 6% ABV, bourbon-infused sweet tea. They have lemonade tea, strawberry mint, cherry lime, raspberry peach, orange vanilla. There's more than 50 locations in greater Cincinnati, over 100 in and around Ohio. Visit turtlesbrew.com for more information and locations. A portion of the proceeds go to Save the Sea Turtles. They are throughout Ohio. They're in Toledo. They're expanding in Central Ohio. So go get you some Turtles Brew today. And then also one last time before Dave and I put a lid on things. See that? See the Cincy Light neon bar sign? Do you want that in your man cave? Do you want that in your garage to drink Cincy Lights? Here's what you have to do. Go to Instagram and follow at Cincy Light on Instagram. And then the first post that is tagged or pinned at the top of their Instagram page, you tag a friend. Tag a couple friends if you want. But you tag a friend on that post, and that will get you registered for one of the 2 neon signs, Cincy Light neon signs that we are giving away. If you do not win one of those, again, we will announce the 2 winners next Thursday night. Wednesday night is the Kansas State game. Dave will be in bed by the time I get home, hopefully in a good mood.
What time is the game?
I think 7.
Oh no, I won't be in bed yet.
I don't get home until like 10:30, 10:45.
I'll be in bed by then. I might even be asleep.
Right. I'm not saying at the end of the game. I'm saying when I get home, when we would do a podcast.
Yes.
You'll be in bed. So we're going to do it Thursday night. But Thursday night, we will announce the 2 winners for the
and your chances of winning are 1 person greater because I do not have Instagram, so I will not be entering the contest.
You are also an employee of Bearcat Journal, so you are not
stupid
allowed to enter the contest. How bad would that look if you won the neon light? And what would you do with it? You wouldn't even put it up behind you and it's on the set.
I'd hold it the whole time.
It's actually kind of heavy.
It'd probably hurt your hands. The light's probably hot. I don't,
Well, they've got bars like
behind it. Yeah.
So you can hold it, but it's not light. Like it's not light.
Well, I've been in the gym now for a good amount of time, so I could probably hold it.
You could, but you wouldn't. Wouldn't.
No.
Also, outside of that, they are also available for pre-order on the merch store. Just go to shop.rhinegeist.com. It's at /products /Cincy-Light-Ohio-LED. And you can get pre-ordered for one of those bad boys so you can have it on display. I know everybody was interested in them. I know everybody is excited that these are now going to be for sale. I believe they will be available at the end of the month. They are almost ready to go. So, any football stuff, Dave? Nothing. We are 12 days from the start of spring football, Dave.
Yeah, we're in the I'm not going to say dead period, but there's not a whole lot going on right now.
Next Thursday, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit. Maybe we'll have Keegan on and talk a little spring football, since it'll be our last live main podcast before the start of spring ball. It starts the 10th, March 10th. So yeah, we're getting there. It's almost there. It's almost here. I really wish that indoor practice facility was done.
Maybe we can get a coach on or something.
Maybe. We do have some media availability tomorrow. We'll be talking with Scott Satterfield. We'll be talking with Tyson Veit. And then the two new secondary coaches will be talking as well. So look for that. And we'll hear from Wes Miller at 1:15. So Aaron and I will have a little talking tomorrow night, as well as a look at Houston. I want to feel good. I'm trying, Dave.
The scout doesn't have to go deep on that one.
Play your balls off. Just as hard as you can play. And if you need a breather, you raise your hand and somebody gives you a breather and they come in and they play their balls off. That's the only chance you have to beat them, because they are going to do it for 40 minutes. It is unfathomable to me that they are 16-1 in the conference.
Oh, we talked in the preseason like 13-5 or 13-7, 14-6. What did we say?
15-5.
No, we said, I'm pretty sure we said if somebody goes 15-5, that will be impressive.
Yeah. That's like that.
We weren't even really thinking though that was a doable thing. We were just like, if they do that, then that's like outstanding.
Arizona might be able to go. Arizona might end up 16-4 if they win out. So there'd be two teams.
The conference I don't think is as good as we thought it was going to be going into the season. Still very good, but
I think the difference being the middle was not as close to the top as we thought.
Yeah.
Like we knew like Arizona State and Colorado, Utah, like a couple of those teams weren't going to be all that good. But we thought like Kansas State, Cincinnati would be.
Yeah, we thought there was this was like a 10-team NCAA tournament conference, and it's probably going to be 8. Probably 7 or 8.
Yeah, depending on if Baylor.
Yeah.
Completes the shitting of the bed.
The nosedive.
Yeah. So yeah, that. But I still, if you would have told me this, okay, it's not going to be as 1 through 10, 1 through 11 deep as we thought it was, and there's going to be a bigger gap between like 5 and 6 than we imagined. I still would have not in a million years thought 16-1 going into the final 3 games. No chance.
Well,
Kelvin's, I mean, I know it's a crazy statement, Dave. I think right now he's the best coach in the country.
Do you want to hear something hilarious? So they obviously have one conference loss. It was February 1st.
Yeah.
Do you know when their next loss was before that?
Like in conference?
No, just in this season, like when they suffered their third loss. November 30th.
Yeah. Because I knew they lost 3 in November.
Their losses are to Auburn, Alabama, Texas Tech, and then the San Diego State game.
Yeah.
So 2 of the top 6 or 7 teams in the country, Texas Tech, and then a random one.
Texas Tech is like 8th in KenPom, I think.
Yeah.
So they lost to 3 top 10 teams essentially,
Yeah.
And then an outlier, San Diego State, that they lost by what, 1?
3.
3 in overtime. Yeah. Oh, wait. The Auburn game is the only one that hasn't been in overtime. Alabama was in overtime. San Diego State was in overtime. Texas Tech was in
There's
overtime.
the thing. Get them into overtime. They can't score points in overtime. They scored 2 against Alabama. They scored 5 against San Diego State.
They've lost 1 game in regulation this year.
How many did they? Here, hold on. So we got 2 and 5. They did score 9 against Texas Tech.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, get them to overtime. That's your best shot. Or
That's why you
figure
stick
out a way
around.
for like 3 of their players to not show up on Saturday.
I mean, like, they get no Curtis Jones and Keyshawn Gilbert against Iowa State, and then no Chance McMillan and Darian Williams against Texas Tech.
Yeah, but it only would have made the wins even that much more impressive if those guys were there.
They
So it would have mattered.
They're just inevitable. Like, I know I've said that like 10 times tonight. Like, their win is just inevitable. Like, you just wait for it to happen at the end of the game.
Who do you think? Okay, obviously we don't know. Injuries can obviously play a huge part in it. And I know some teams are dealing with them right now. Who would you say right now, going in to this last stretch, you think is like your favorite to win the national championship?
It has to be Auburn. They've done the most. Like, I think they're pretty clearly, like, in terms of resume, they have proven far and away that they've done more than anybody else. Duke is, I mean, probably the most top to bottom talented. I think Shire's got them playing
That's
really well.
Now they have
I
some
don't
injury questions, like
Yeah.
will Malik Brown come back? How hurt is Proctor? But like I think in the tournament setting, they will be very, very hard to beat.
Yeah, but I mean, how can you? I don't know how you can say Auburn is not very hard to beat when.
Well, I can say it because I hate them because I'm a Tennessee fan, so that's how I can say
Sure, sure, but
Oh,
they've
who-
lost twice
Samson
to
or
Duke
Self?
and Florida.
Who am I taking? Kelvin.
Samson, a million times. Like, I
Bill's
think he's the
still
best coach in the country.
Bill's still a great coach, but we're 2 years in a row now where his talent acquisition decisions can be questioned on a pretty substantial level.
Yes.
I mean, for him to talk the way he talked after UC blew them out in the Big 12 tournament and then come back with this team, I mean, I'm not saying he's like washed or terrible, but like, he ran those dudes over last year with a semi truck and then put it in reverse and ran them over again in that post game. And then he comes back this year with not a whole lot different.
Lot better.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't solve the problem. They can't shoot. Got a point guard that can't shoot, a power forward that can't shoot, and a center that can't shoot. That's not great in 2025 college basketball. Who would you take as the best coach in the country right now?
I would say
I think it's a two-man race for
Bruce or Kelvin.
I would say Oates or Kelvin. Just because Oates is on like 3 years in a row of being at this like top 5.
Yeah.
100 points a game, building these really fun
I just love
rosters.
Bruce. I can't get over my love of Bruce.
I do too. But over the last 3-year window, I would say it's either Nate Oates or Kelvin Sampson.
Yeah.
Bruce would probably be third.
I wouldn't fight that. I just wish that man wouldn't have lied about a barbecue.
A whole lot of people down there that wish he wouldn't have lied about a barbecue. Although, look, there's nobody, and I don't think they have a ton of basketball NIL. Like, they're fine, but I don't think they're like spending their ass off. But NIL was built for Bruce Pearl.
Oh, yeah.
Just built for Bruce Pearl.
Aaron Kraft can go do a lot of things, and his dad can join him.
All right, that's going to wrap it up. That is the BCJ podcast, brought to you by the Holy Grail and Cincy Light, right here on BearcatJournal.com.